Hello there beautiful, welcome back to my channel. How is it going today? My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now in today's video we're going to be covering Garnet. Now Garnet has some of my favourite aspects of this entire game because, well, I'm biased as heck and she summons Alexander for her EX and we all know how much I love Alexander. But she brings another iconic FF9 summon to the board with her LD in Arc, but let's take a look at what that LD buff's going to do for her, what Arc actually brings to the party for Dissidia, and of course let's take a look at the event that comes along with Garnet, which is a brand new type of event called Intertwined Wills. So if that's all stuff that you're interested in, then of course, as always, stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, as always, before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Over on Twitch, you can always find me streaming Dissidia Opera Omnia content, FF14 content, and all sorts of things. And honestly, the fact that we have a delay for Endwalker means that I can spend a bit more time finishing up all the bits I wanted to do in Shadowbringers before that comes out. So while I understand that with the delay for Endwalker being very problematic for people who perhaps need to book time off work and stuff, selfishly, I'm kind of okay with it, and obviously it's important that the game takes the time it needs in order to be released. I'll also be streaming Final Fantasy V Pixel Remaster when that's released on Wednesday, and that's something I'm very excited about as well, with FF5 actually being my favourite Final Fantasy game nowadays, so definitely come along and check me out for that. And I just want to say a massive thank you as well to everyone that came along to the London meetup that we did over the weekend. Honestly, it was something I was very nervous about. I wasn't sure how it was going to go with the way the world is. I know I spoke about this in my last Dissidia covered video, but I really am very thankful to have met so many lovely people, and I really do look forward to doing something like it again. So a massive thank you to Meltdown for hosting it for us. They were really lovely, opened up a little bit early so that we could go in, get our drinks, etc. And we just had a really good time, so a massive thank you to everybody. Over on Patreon, I do shout out one of my patrons at random every time I release a new video so that I can give my thanks to each individual person as they come as well. So today that person is going to be Maxim121, who has the twins from FF4 as their title card, and honestly you've been a long time supporter of mine, so a massive thank you goes out to you and all of my other patrons, as without you guys I wouldn't be able to make these content at the frequency at which I do. So if it's something that interests you and you're not yet a patron, then perhaps you'd like to click down below in the description box to the link and you can see all the different benefits, and we actually are looking at something brand new for Patreon coming up which I'll be doing while I have a week off coming up next week, so that's something to look forward to as well. And of course lastly, don't forget to check out all the other content creators out there as well for Dissidia Opera Omnia and all the other resources out there, with particular mentions to the Tombury Troupe and their fantastic infographics for Lufenia and the characters themselves as they come out, DissidiaCompendium.com, which is a fantastic resource for everybody, Rem and DissidiaDB.com, and of course Leo Bob and the translations that they have over on Reddit, and lots of other things as well. Definitely go and check out all these other people as well as me. Okay, so first things first, let's take a look at the banner and exactly what we're going to see from Garnet's Intertwined Wills. So as you can see from the banner here, we have Garnet herself, obviously, with her full kit. We also have Lan and Rain and their BT, for anyone who hasn't got it already. And we also see Camlanort return as well with his LD. Now, Camlanort is not a character I would imagine many people are pulling for at this point, considering they weren't really pulling for him to begin with. But I'd like to think that him being an NT representative and a primary villain of Final Fantasy XI means he probably will get a BT somewhere down the line, though if he does, we haven't seen it yet. So realistically, if you've already got Camlanort, you're probably not going to suddenly start pulling him out here. He's actually a character I really enjoy using, but being realistic, he's not someone you really want to be looking to pull for. And then Irvin EX is on there for Chaos Challenge purposes as well. So Garnet is a very interesting character. She doesn't actually get a rework this time around, but if you've not used her before, she's a support-based character that is built around Enchant and Imperil, but she does it for two different elements. So basically by using Aquamarine Water Glint, which is a group brave HP attack that batteries the party, you then get water, like the water variants of her skills, her brave and HP plus change to Deluge and Dragon Wave, which are battery focused attacks, and she gets Water Dragon, which is water enchant for the party, which also adds initial bravery and max bravery. So it's more keen on brave gain strategies than brave damage strategies. And then alternatively, you have Peridot Thunderflash, which is AoE brave HP, and instead of having Water Dragon, which is the water buff, it removes that and it gives you Thundersar instead. And similarly, if you have Thundersar and then use Aquamarine Water Glint, it removes that and puts the water one back on. Now Thundersar gives you Super Bolt and Hammer of Judgment instead of the regular brave and HP attacks, and this is more inclined towards brave damage, so attack up, max brave up, things like that, and the attacks themselves are more inclined to dealing bravery damage rather than batterying the party. Now, I spoke about the EX, and we all know I love the EX, and we all know why. It's because it has Alexander from Final Fantasy IX in it, and that is absolutely my reason to like it. But it does actually have some really nice things on there as well. It's similar in nature to Ishtola's Pulse of Life, in that it's an instant turn rate, free turn. You get a free skill after it instead of recovering skills, but you also get the Holy Guardian buff and Holy Prayer buff, which is enchant for both of the part of water and for of lightning, and you also get to imperil water and lightning at the same time. So you get more damage from having that. You get party-wide auras, so her party-wide attack, max bravery auras, things like that can be quite good, particularly while you're in Thunder Stance, and if you wanted to, you could go with the brave regen aspects of the Water Dragon effect instead. But what does her LD actually do? Now, her LD is actually very interesting, because it basically sets up off-turn damage for Garnet that works regardless of anything else that's going on, because it's based on how many turns have passed on the field, as opposed to you taking turns, enemies taking turns, you hitting for damage, them hitting for damage. It's just something that happens. Every 4 turns you'll get a Summon of Arc. But before you look at that, you actually get the attack itself, which is a multi-HP dumping AoE Brave HP attack that heals the party up to 50% of max HP, so similarly to the Holy Prayer attack as well, and you get Brave Party, Bravery Battery for the party while you're at it. And then, with the attack that you get after it, you get every 4 stacks, so every time a turn passes, a stack is added to Eidolon Eternal Darkness. You'll then get a AoE 5-hit Brave HP attack that deals full HP damage to each target, and then it just gains you bravery, and it goes back to 1 again. So then this ticker starts going up. Not only that, but the actual buff itself gives you quite a lot. So you get elemental weakness damage, HP damage, stolen overflow, gain overflow, and brave gains up for the entire party, and then you get the same again on Garnet herself, so she gets twice as much basically. It's a lot. I think the thing with Garnet is that she puts on a lot of hats under that little white mage hood. She's got a lot of different things that she does. She has Enchant Imperil for 2 different elements. You can kind of gear her towards a more brave gain style team or a more brave damage style team, depending on what you already have access to. The damage that comes off of Arc is actually very potent, and it's something that will always happen regardless of the situation that you're in at any given point. So as long as turns are passing, which is going to happen, you're going to be getting off-turn damage with Garnet. And Garnet's damage was always the issue that she really had, because she didn't really have a lot of it to begin with, and that's still true as well. She does, however, get increased versions of her Delusion, Dragon Wave in Water Stance, and Super Bolt and Hammer of Judgment from her Thunder Stance. So Deluge Plus is a bravery attack that is a party battery. Dragon Wave is an HP attack that recovers bravery to the other party members, not herself. And then Super Bolt is a single target HP attack, AoE bravery attack that refunds bravery on Garnet. And then Hammer of Judgment Plus is the only multi-HP dumping attack that she has. So you might find that you want to be using this if you're wanting to deal damage with Garnet, but it's important to make sure that you're aware that the reason that you're taking Garnet isn't really for her damage. Core abilities wise, Garnet is okay. There's nothing hugely shocking about Garnet. She does Water Enchant for the character that's calling her, not party-wide sadly, and then does AoE damage and Water Imperil, and that's kind of it. And then in terms of the LD call ability, you do get Brave Overflows and party HP damage up 10%, which is quite nice. And then you get party healing off of it. It's another one of those ones that does a little bit of everything, but you're probably not going to use this all that often in favor of more specialized LD call abilities. And then armor-wise, she has Unity Keystone, which is great. And then party and HP damage limits up 10% for the party as well. So she definitely fulfills her role well as a support character. And I think that now that she has this additional damage from Arc and the fact that she can use Hammer of Judgment to get multiple HP jumps if you want them, I think it's the versatility of Garnet that makes her most appealing. She's not a character that you absolutely 100% have to have, but she's very useful in very select situations. The boss rush that's coming up, she's extremely useful in, and there are a lot of places where she can be used. So if she's a character that you want to invest in, she's certainly not going to disappoint you. Okay, so let's take a look at what Intertwined Wills is. And honestly, Intertwined Wills is a lost chapter by a different name. Obviously, characters aren't released that are new quite as frequently as they used to be. So Intertwined Wills are like an alternate story chapter surrounded around a particular character, and it's quite nice for people who are invested in the story for Dissidia or Opera Omnia because there's nice little, like, exchanges, situations, that characters in that we may not have seen before. To be honest with you, I could probably spend a bit more time watching the story and stuff because I kind of fell off watching it, but there's actually some very sweet moments in Dissidia or Opera Omnia, and you know, it's good to have a look at those. But we're here to look at the Lufenia Plus, so let's talk about that. So you're going to be fighting 3 antlions. Now, we've seen antlions before. They're a nasty piece of work that really you don't want to get broken, you don't want to allow to get broken, and they just hit you really hard in general. But the main gimmick here is that they will start the fight with Sandstorm Plus, which is an ability that will knock out 90% of your current HP and give you a max HP down debuff, and all 3 of them will do this in a row at the start of the fight, leaving you on very, very little HP. So you are expected to heal it all up, and then you will also then eat this like attack again once the enemies hit certain thresholds, so 70%, 40%, and 20%. The orb's actually kind of weird with this one as well, in that it's one that will appear at the start of the fight, disappear at 80%, and then it will reappear again, but as opposed to 50%, it reappears at 40%, so it's not quite as heavy-handed as you would think in terms of like having to keep up with the orb. In terms of the amount of time you have to anyway, but you have to do either water damage or thunder damage in order to keep the orb up, and it's only +1 for each of them, so +1 for water damage, +1 for thunder damage. If you're using Garnet, obviously you have both of them, so therefore you're able to keep on top of the orb as best you can that way. You can actually burst a lot of damage down in the first phase of the fight, because it's only 20% that you have to deal with the orb, and if you're using characters that at least have some semblance of damage, that more elemental damage, like Lan and Rain, for example, who absolutely boss this fight because it's a 3 enemy fight, which means they're going to deal a lot of damage, or Ash even, or like Beatrix is actually a fantastic character for this fight because not only is she thunder based, meaning that she can at least top the orb up, but she can do it with off-turn damage as well, which means that she's able to do it even more so through her traps and the way that she works in general. She's also very good at, if you're able to time the use of her Holy Knight's protection before enemies go through their transitions into their Sandstorm Plus phases, you can actually mitigate the damage really well. You can also use tanks to do this, so Gladio, Galoof, etc., especially if you have Thunder enchant calls or Water enchantments like Rydia, Ash again, Kryl, stuff like that that can keep them like so that they're still keeping on top of the orb while dealing with the damage. Or you can go for an all-out, full-blown delay comp because they don't actually punish delay at all. The only thing they will do is they go into a counter stance where if you do melee damage, they'll like counter-attack you with a Brave HP attack. But it's also nullified by weakness elemental damage, so if you're enchanting your party for some are either water or thunder, which realistically you should be doing anyway, it's not something you should largely have to worry about. But if you're taking the likes of Lan and Rain, Cloud of Darkness, Setsa's actually very good for this fight as well because of the fact that you're able to capitalize on your damage. They do actually put up a lot of buffs for their defenses, which again brings Beatrix into the fray. But if you're bringing Setsa, you don't actually care about their defenses because you're hitting for rainbow numbers anyway. And because they don't get rid of their own debuffs, you can actually use Freeze Joker to really strong effect here as well. Past that, bring your biggest damage dealers if you want to go the tank route or the delay route, and you should be fine as long as you're keeping on top of that orb. So we're actually going to switch things up a little bit, and I'm actually going to put the would you pull section of the video before the should you pull section, because I think it's nicer to showcase the patrons and the opinions of others before I give my own thoughts as opposed to after. So welcome to Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why. So with Garnet's banner, I think most people are kind of, yeah, I want it, but I'm not sure I need it. Because looking at the numbers, 6% of people are going, yes, gems. 53% of people are saying 100 plus tickets. 34% of people are saying less than 100 tickets. And 6% are outright saying no. So a lot of people want Garnet by the looks of things. Because generally, the kind of thing I feel when it comes to ticket pulls is that like you want it pretty bad, but you're not willing to go the whole way for the pity. Because if you're going to gem, typically it means you're going to pity. So once again, a massive thank you goes out to all our patrons for their comments and their votes as always. And let's go into some of the comments. So Protomega007 says 100 plus tickets for me, as Garnet is a favourite who now becomes an even more powerful enchanter and debuffer with boosted support for herself especially. She does do a lot more damage than she used to, which is very good, and the arc buffs like Brave Gain percentages are always a thing. HP damage plus on top of Brave Gains is always a thing, and the fact that she's as versatile as she is, being able to do multiple different like enchantment imperils is actually really nice. It's kind of a theme that we have for these next couple of this past week with Lana and Rain and then Garnet as well. But I do think that she is a character that is difficult to kind of stand out amongst a large like range of support options. Like for example, if you have Ishtola at 3 out of 3 already, then maybe you might not need Garnet, but there are a lot of opportunities where you would really like her, so she's a bit of a difficult one to judge, honestly. Booper Wiggum says, I don't have Camelot either, so we'll go through 200 or so tickets, but I won't go any deeper than that. It's a long way off, but I'll likely be pulling on Edge LD, which I believe is when she next comes back around, so I can get Garnet then if I need to. Garnet does actually have a pretty nice glow up with her C90, but to be honest, every character has a pretty nice glow up with their C90. There are very few characters where you look at them and you go, nah, with that. So if you're wanting to wait to pull on Garnet, then you can do that, but while I was saying earlier that I don't think you have to have Garnet for any particular thing, she is a character that you can make a use of a lot if you so choose. So pulling for a character now or later, that's up to you. Sergeant Tuffy says that Dagger's new LD is one I've been eagerly anticipating. Deep tickets for now, leaving gems on the table. Her pre-existing suite is already a kitchen sink with her HP healing, double element enchant, and her ability to pivot between enhancing Brave Gains or Brave Damage based on the team she's in. Those assets alone could put her in nearly any team in any fight. Without looking at what her LT attack adds, she shines anywhere you put her. But then you add on a follow-up trap she gets every 4 turns, any turns, and then you've really got something special. We've already seen how consistent off-turn damage can tip the scales with the likes of Ace, and Daggers adds in a lot of damage, especially compared to a competition. Pair her with a second character that's able to battery her or take frequent turns, or does both, like Ace, and watch the fights melt. I am a huge fan of off-turn damage, we all know this, and I will definitely be putting something into this banner. I'm just concerned at the rate at which my resources will start dropping, because I've already spent a fair amount on Lana and Rain and not come away with anything, and I'm not sure I'm willing to gem Garnet, even though I love Alexander. The thing is that if I really love Alexander, I can look at him elsewhere. So yes, he's a favourite, but I have to try to be sensible where possible, and I'm sure I would extend the same advice to everybody else too. Pale Raider finally says tickets for this one and around 50 or so. I haven't pulled in a while, but any trap follow-up effects that don't require me to wait for the enemy are welcome on my roster. Add the 100% EX heal, enchant you can switch between, and the classic battery kit, and you've got a very shiny Garnet. The only reason I'm not going ham on this banner is because I already have Camelot burning a hole in my pocket, and Orin is right after this. I can understand people putting her off until she comes back around, but that's a long time away, and if it turns out that I don't need her now, then I certainly wouldn't need her then. This is totally fair. Orin coming up is a big character for a lot of players, because he does such strong weakness damage, but he does it with melee damage rather than elemental based damage, and he does it very well whilst also being the next sort of level of counter tanks. He's just a very strong character. But one thing that's worth noting is that Garnet's banner will still be live while Orin's is, so if you wanted to, there's nothing wrong with waiting for Orin, maybe pulling for him, seeing if he's being nice, and then come back to Garnet if you wanted to. But if it were me, I would prioritise Orin over Garnet. So finally, we asked the question, should you pull for Garnet and or Camlanaut? I'd say in the Camlanaut's case, it's a pretty hard no. Camlanaut's not a character you need to be chasing after at this point in time. He's very rarely, if ever, been somebody that people actively chased after. I enjoy Camlanaut, and I know a lot of other players that do, but in terms of actually like advising for pulls, I think there are a lot better characters you could be spending your resources on, even as a secondary pull. Garnet does a lot of different things, and she does them very well. Like, she has multiple elements, she does battery well, she has healing in her kit that's a little bit more prominent now that her LD does it as well as her EX. She has enchant and imperil for multiple elements, and now thanks to Arc she has off-turn damage and nice HP auras and brave gain auras and things like that. She pairs up very, very well with other off-turn damage dealers. I would like her on the back of the fact that I'd really like to pair her up with Beatrix, because I want to see just attacks flying off everywhere. If I had Ace BT, I'd absolutely use Garnet alongside Ace as well. There's a lot of characters like that that work really well with her. But the fact that her enchantment is based on a party-wide buff rather than an aura on Garnet means that she doesn't especially like characters that hold turns, like Shulk, Vayne, Tidus, Terra, etc., because they'll run out of the buff and therefore they're not really getting the most out of Garnet. That, and in all honesty, if you've got Y'shtola 3 out of 3 and you use Y'shtola a lot, there are differences between Y'shtola and Garnet, obviously, but largely you're probably going to use Y'shtola in many situations where you would use Garnet unless you were actively looking for that enchant and imperil aspect of her kit. The off-turn damage is obviously lovely. Like, the fact that you don't have to concentrate on Arc at all, it's just going to go off regularly, like every 4 turns, whether they're Garnets or not. It's an added point of damage that's going to be proficient throughout the entire fight, because the buff itself lasts a long while, so you're going to be able to take advantage of it for a long period of time. But whether that's enough for you to want to put her in your party on a regular basis, then that's entirely up to you. Like I said, I would like her very much, but I'm quite biased in the fact that I like her kit, I like what she represents, I enjoy the varying different things, and I think that she makes some very interesting party compositions as well. Do you have to have her though? I'm not so sure, but sound off in the comments below and let me know what you think of Garnet. I think that she's a really good character, but I don't think she's one that everyone has to have, but other people may feel differently. She does have a bright future with her C90, but she's also on a really good banner with her C90, so let me know what you guys think. So that's going to be all for today's video. Thank you all very much for joining me today. As I said, let me know in the comments below whether you're pulling hard for Garnet, or if you're waiting for Auron first, because I know a lot of people are waiting to pull for Auron first, or just whether you're just going to skip her entirely. As I said, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making. And that's going to be it from me, so I shall see you next time. Take care, everyone. Bye now.